Alright, this video is Overcoming Addictions to Worldly Pleasures by Practicing Moderation, Part 2. I had to change the title that I had intended for Part 1 because it was too long. Also, I don't remember specifically where I left off at the end of part 1. I have an idea of what I was trying to talk about, but I'm going to try to come up with a quick summary of what part 1 was about. I didn't intend for there to be a part 2 originally, but I realized at the end of part 1 that I was going to have to make a part 2 because of how long part 1 was. So, in part 1, I talked about how the quitting cold turkey method didn't usually work out very well for me, so I had to practice moderation instead. And I also gave examples of my personal experience with addictions to worldly pleasures. Those examples were about things such as overeating and addictions to certain video games, as well as me having problems with binge watching videos and TV shows and movies. I also talked about filling the void in our lives, or filling the voids in our lives. And I wanted to talk about my version of monk mode, but I didn't get to get into much details about that. I think that's where I left off at the end of part 1. So I'm just going to reread that part that's in my notes and try to talk about that in detail. So I have written down my version of monk mode, as well as a list of things: meditation, blocking out distractions, focusing on my goals, practicing moderation, giving my life meaning, giving myself a sense of purpose and direction, and filling the voids in my life. So I try to remain calm and focus on my goals, and I use meditation to help with that, so that way I can organize my thoughts and my memories, so that I can come up with plans. And I also try to understand how things are affecting me That way I can figure out what to do with the negative things in my life as well as the positive things. And I try to block out distractions. That way meditating will be easier, but also I don't want to overindulge in the distractions to the point that I end up not doing the things that I need to do. In other words, I don't want to end up procrastinating too much because I have things that are important that I need to do, and even though it may not always be easy to do those things and it may be difficult to get started on certain tasks, I have to be careful to not procrastinate too much. And I've struggled with that a lot. I still struggle with that. And moderation is what is supposed to make it easier for me to complete tasks, because it can be very difficult for me to complete certain tasks because I'm afraid of them, either because I lack confidence that I'll be able to do them, or I end up being... Sorry, I am having a lot of difficulty with focusing right now. I'm also very hungry, and the dog was barking because somebody knocked on the door, and that was distracting me, and then I don't even know what exactly is going on, but I'm gonna try to get back on track and hope that I don't have to restart this video, because I've already had enough of my time wasted. And I'm going to look at my notes to try and figure out what I was talking about. Oh yeah, so practicing moderation. I need to do that so that I don't do too much of one thing and it becomes overwhelming, but I also don't want to do too much of something that I need to do and then not have enough energy to continue doing it, or end up not doing it the right way because I was too tired or overwhelmed, and as a result my judgment was clouded. But also I need to make sure that what I am doing, I feel like it has a purpose so that I can continue to be motivated. And also I need to have whatever I am doing planned out and organized enough so that I can have a sense of direction. That way it'll be a lot easier to continue to focus on what tasks I'm trying to complete. And also I struggle with prioritization as well as the order of what I am doing. Oftentimes I have a general idea of what I want to do, but don't know much about how to do it or what steps I need to take in order to accomplish a goal. So worldly pleasures can be used as tools to help people learn, grow, and connect with one another, as well as they can help with self-discovery. So, in other words, worldly pleasures they can be a bad thing if they are overindulged in, but they can be a good thing if they are used as tools. And when worldly pleasures are overindulged in, they can become addictions. And that can make it difficult to focus on goals. Meditation, like I already explained, helps to organize your thoughts, feelings, and memories. Meditation helps you to generate ideas and make plans. Meditation improves memory and sleep quality. And having good sleep quality helps a lot with being able to focus on task and make reasonable decisions. It also greatly improves mood. So what we want is peace, security, and stability. Moderation helps to avoid extremes, which avoiding extremes can help with peace, security, and stability. When there is too much of an imbalance of things in your life, that can lead to feelings of instability and insecurities. And there's also a need for balance between learning and applying what you learn. It can be a good thing to learn a lot of things, but if you don't apply what you learn, then the things that you learn might seemingly be for nothing. And as a result of not using what we learn, we may forget what we learn. Also, if we try to act too often without learning enough, then we may end up making decisions that are made hastily, and that can result in more conflict. And another thing that we need is balance between content creation and consumption. That has to do with the other thing that I mentioned about learning and applying what you learn. If you create too much content, you can get burnout, and that can decrease the quality of your content. If you create too much content without consuming enough content, without being able to learn enough things and have enough inspiration to fuel your creativity, but also if you don't do much with what you learn, if you don't use your creativity, then it becomes harder to hold on to your creativity. And also, using creativity can help us to feel better and help us to feel like what we're doing has a purpose. And I have written down some tips. We need to be patient with ourselves and other people as well. And we need to forgive ourselves and other people. Sometimes it can be difficult to be patient with ourselves because we end up sometimes it can be difficult to be patient with ourselves because we end up being uncertain about the timing of things, and we want to go ahead and get certain things out of the way, but we have difficulties with that, and so we end up becoming angry with ourselves because we try to figure out why we are having issues, and then we blame ourselves for those issues and end up acting angry towards ourselves, and that can make it more difficult to get certain things out of the way because it can make us experience more stress, which can further pile up and impair our judgment due to us being overwhelmed. And we also need to be patient with other people because we need to realize that it isn't just us that struggles with things and that other people struggle with things as well. And we need to be able to accept help from other people and learn from other people, but we also need to help them learn, and we need to be patient with them if we want them to be patient with us as well. We need to be careful with how much time we are spending on certain things, but we also need to make sure we're spending enough time on things. And that can be difficult, but moderation is difficult, but it's what is needed. I am trying to figure out which part of my notes I was at. Oh, yeah. So we need to forgive ourselves because we need to understand causes and effects. We need to understand what causes problems and how we and other people are affected by things. We need to understand the cause and effect relationships between things and how we can use that to our advantage. And we need to not get stuck playing the blame game, and we actually need to focus on what we can do to help resolve issues that we may have. And something that has to do with forgiving myself is understanding that relapses are normal and expected with addictions. I have often had trouble forgiving myself for relapses, and relapses are when you return to an addiction. And relapses, they happen. They are normal. They are expected, and the goal is to avoid them, but also know that if they do happen, you have to forgive yourself and you have to figure out what you learned from them and what you can do next time to help yourself have better chances at getting rid of the addictions. But you need to not only learn from your own mistakes, but learn from other people's mistakes and help them learn from your mistakes and their own mistakes as well. But you need to not focus too much on other people and not focus too much on yourself either. And you need to be mindful of what you do and why you do it. You need to understand what purpose the things you are doing serve, but you also need to understand what you are doing and how that affects you and how that affects other people. And you need to be kind and respectful to others in order to be able to get help from other people. In order to be able to help people, you need to be kind and respectful to them, but you also need to be kind and respectful to yourself. People need to be able to feel safe, and they need to be able to feel like you care about them in order for them to accept your help. But in order to help yourself, you also need to care about yourself, and you also need to be able to trust yourself. And okay. So you need to be grateful and cherish your bonds with others in order to understand how things affect us, in order to understand how things help us and what we can learn from them and how we can use those things to our advantage. In order to do that, we need to be grateful of things, and we also need to cherish the bonds that we have with others, because life is very difficult to go about feeling alone, and so we need the help of others. We need to have each other in order for life to not be as difficult, and so we have to be grateful of what we have in the material sense, but we also need to be grateful for the people that we have around us and the positive things that those people have to offer us. And we also need to be grateful of what we are able to provide for those people. And we need to hold each other accountable. We need reminders from people. We need to do the same for them as well. And our goals need to be measurable so that we can keep track of them. If we don't keep track of our goals, then it's hard to hold on to our motivation. And we need to be able to keep track of them so that we can learn from them. We need to have a way to be able to remember what we learn and how we can use that to our advantage. And we also need to figure out the details of our plans as we go along. And our plans may end up as a result of what we learn. Our plans may have to change a lot, so we need to keep track of that. We need to keep track of what we plan on doing. We need to keep track of how the things that happen affect us. We need to keep track of how we feel about things. There's a lot of things we need to keep track of, and we have to figure out how to keep track of those things. We need to figure out what works for us, what helps us to remember things better, and we need to figure out what helps us to learn better. I am not certain if I will have to have a part 3 or not, but it looks like I may have to have a part 3 for this video. I could try to get through the rest of my notes, but I am having difficulty with speaking fast, also because I have distractions in the background. And I'm hoping that this video is organized enough to help, but I have a lot of distractions that are going on that are making it difficult for me to make this video, but despite that, I'm continuing with making the video anyways because I already feel like I have had too much time that has passed, and I don't want to spend too much more time on making this video, especially because of how far I've already gotten into the video. And I had a part 2 notes section that I intended to read before returning back to what I had planned for part 1 before I knew that I would have to make a part 2. But instead of continuing with that part 2 notes section, I just continued with the part 1 notes section, and am just recently realizing this. So now I'm going to have to look over that really quickly so that I can figure out what I want to talk about next. Because I got to the end of a page of notes and then realized, once I looked at the next page, so by the looks of it, since I've already continued with that part 1 section of notes, I should wait to continue with the part 2 section, because it doesn't seem like it would make much sense if I didn't continue with what I was already reading. So I'm just going to do that, and then if that part 2 section ends up having to be included in a part 3, then so be it. But for now, I'm hoping that I can wrap up this part 1 section. So I have written down some more tips. Listen to what your mind and body is trying to tell you. Sometimes we will have physical and mental signs of problems, and by paying attention to what we are feeling and what we are observing and experiencing, that may help us to be able to come up with plans to help ourselves with our problems. And sometimes our problems can be revealed to us in the form of dreams. And so I try to pay attention to my dreams so that hopefully I can use them to be able to figure out what problems are affecting me the most and which ones I need to prioritize. And so if I remember dreams, which I don't remember dreams very often, I try to pay attention to those dreams, because that could be that the reason for me remembering those dreams could be that my mind is trying to tell me, hey, this is a problem and you need to do something about it. And so meditation helps with being able to pay attention to what your mind and body is telling you, and it helps you to be able to remember and keep track of that stuff. So I have written down, accept help when necessary. Sometimes we need to accept help, but sometimes it can be difficult to accept help. Sometimes we may rely too much on help, and sometimes we may not accept help often enough. So moderation involves having to find a balance between those two things. Sometimes we need to take breaks, but we don't want to overindulge in them to the point that it becomes procrastination. But also, sometimes we need to take breaks so that we can think with a mind that is more clear, so that we can have better judgment. And also, we need to not waste too much of our energy and doing meditation, doing a lot of things that helps improve the quality of our life by helping our mind and body to heal and helping us to have more energy. That helps our mind to do work for us, that helps with our creativity. And I think that's all I can fit into this video, so I guess I'll have to have a part 3. So that's it for this video. Peace!